study session of the Quran. We had started studying Surah, and just as a practical tool, I will once again share the link, one link for pulling up Quran translation. And from IslamicStudy.com, we have had two very profound sessions earlier, and we will continue from the beginning of Surah today. Without further delay, I would like to return the mic to Sister Yamina, who will, inshallah, again lead us through a profound session of Quranic listening, Quranic hearing, Quranic healing, inshallah. Bismillah. تفضل Sister Yamina.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome again to Always Receiving Nur's weekly classes on Surah Al-Ra'd. May we always be open to receiving the light of divine guidance in this surah, and may we live with that guidance, inshallah. So, this week, we're inshallah reflecting on the second ayah of Surah Al-Ra'd, and it's been 2 weeks since we met last, because last week was the monthly teleconference. So let me remind us the first ayah as well, inshallah. So the first ayah of Surah Al-Ra'd says, Alif Lam Mim Ra, those are the ayat of the book, and what your Rabb has sent down to you is the truth, yet most people do not believe. And so we stopped at the question, how do we know that what God has sent down is actually the truth? And the answer comes from the Quran itself, from the next ayat, including the second ayah. And it is because we can verify and inshallah confirm the truth of the message sent through the ayat in the world, the creational ayat, al-ayat al-takwiniyah, to which the Quran is referring to in this ayat that we're going to reflect on today. And these ayat are as though saying to us, look, reflect, check, and you will see that the Quranic message is the truth indeed, that it is God who has raised. I'm now reading the second ayah of Surah Al-Ra'd. It is God who has raised up the heavens without any support that you can see, and then established himself on the throne, and he has made the sun and the moon subservient to his laws, each running its course for a term set by him. He regulates all that exists. He makes the ayat clear so that you will be certain of meeting your Rabb, inshallah. So, the clear ayat here are in the heavens, in the skies, samawat, being raised without visible support, and in the sun and the moon following their course according to a well-defined order. And we're told that Allah tells us here that He makes the ayat clear, which means that they are clearly ayat in the way they are created. They are created in a way that it's clear. What they point to is clear. And this ayah, the second ayah of Surah Al-Ra'd, as well as many other Quranic ayat, they give us hints on how to find out that the heavens, the sun, the moon, and all these things that they are referring to in the world are indeed clear ayat. So this ayah is giving us, this Quranic ayah is giving us the guidance, the key on how to go out and actually listen and understand and read the ayat in the world. So let's start from the beginning of the ayah. So the ayah in the ayah is أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الله الذي رفع السماوات بغير عمد ترونها ثم استوى على العرش وسخر الشمس والقمر كل يجري لأجل مسمى يدبر الأمر يفصل الآيات لعلكم بلقاء ربكم توقنون. So the beginning of the ayah is this heavens being raised without supports that we can see. رفع السماوات بغير عمد ترونها. And so the expression is repeated in the Quran again and again in many different ayats. The heavens here, samawat, is the plural form of the noun sama', which means primarily something that is above another thing. And so it is often used in its plural form, samawat, to describe, it could be understood as the visible skies, especially for the layman, or in this age of science, maybe it could be interpreted as referring to the atmospheric layers, because now we have names for them. Most people learn at school that these are gases and this and that. These atmospheric layers which envelop the planet Earth. And there you can understand it, the plural makes sense because it's not one layer but many layers. It could also be a reference to the cosmic space with all the stars, the solar systems and the galaxies, etc. And there also it seems like all these celestial bodies, I mean the stars, the planets, the galaxies, they are as though suspended in space. Like at least we can see the stars at night, and we don't need to know much about astronomy or anything to wonder at how all these bodies are suspended there in the skies, especially when you learn that they are all in constant, unceasing motion, subhanallah. So this samawat actually is more general than skies or heavens. What is above? And in the Quran, apart from the choice of words, which is also a system of guidance, a way of guiding us, what is beautiful is also that it addresses everyone. So in the Quran, God speaks to all of us, to everybody, and at all times. So it's not just to those who have a certain knowledge. The Quran addresses the layman, the scholar, and the most learned person. All of us, all of them, may listen and benefit from its teachings. And I like the metaphor that Ustad Badiuzzzaman Said Nursi gives. He likens it to a repast, like a dinner, a meal, at which thousands of different levels of minds, intellects, spirits, and hearts find their nourishments, he says, so that all are fulfilled and all are satisfied bi-idhnillah. And so this feast is the Quran, and it's a feast for everyone, and it's a feast of guidance. And that's why very often the Quran is not specific, especially when it comes to matters related to the universe, because the Quran's purpose is guidance. Guidance to whom? To all who are seeking guidance. So that all people, whatever their level of understanding, can get their share of the Quranic guidance. They can benefit from it without being alienated. And so because the purpose is to guide and not to teach the details of creation, as in science, for instance, the Quran is not a book of science. So it speaks generally. And does it harm those who are, for instance, let's say, scholars and scientists? Not at all. It's because it's an encouragement, and it's intriguing for those who are curious. They're more likely to get intrigued and actually go and search for themselves. It's much nicer than actually be given all the details, when actually what we said, the Quran teaches us what we can't find otherwise. So it's actually, we can go and find out how things work, but we don't know their meaning. We don't know what to do with them. So the Quran teaches us what to do with them and how to interpret them. And so if the intention is to follow the guidance of the Quran, if the intention is to know the purpose of being here on earth and the being of existence, then the more we uncover the mysteries and the laws of creation, the more likely we will be amazed at the beautiful divine names reflecting everywhere. And that is why the Quran talks about the universe, but not in the way science does. The Quran mentions the heavens 310 times, the earth 461 times, the sun 33 times, the moon 27 times, water 63 times, etc., etc. However, when the Quran mentions these things about the universe, it does not speak of the universe or natural phenomena like the winds, the formation of clouds, rain, and all these things in order to make us know something about the phenomena itself. It's all in order to make us know God, our Rabb, our compassionate, our generous host, with his beautiful names. So in other words, the Quran speaks of the world, yes, in order to make its creator known to us. It does not talk about the world for itself. That's what I want to emphasize here. So when the Quran attracts our attention to the heavens being raised without support that we can see, it does so in order to show us how this fact observed in the universe is an ayah, an indication to an all-encompassing, a universal disposal, a tadbir. It says in the ayah, يُدَبِّرُ الْأَمْرِ, a universal power, a universal knowledge that transcends the heavens and all that we can see. So it does not specify what is meant by samawat, that which is above. It does not tell us exactly what it refers to, and this way it leaves the door open to many possibilities, all of which are possible and true. And this way the Quranic ayah functions truly as an ayah, because it's not telling us this is what it is. That was not the point anyway from the beginning. So it is opening a door for us and showing us the way. And it's an indication for everyone at different levels, different understanding, different situations, different contexts. So it could be the fact that it is not specified what samawat exactly refers to. And actually, that's what it does not actually refer exactly to only one thing. That's the whole point. Because the samawat, the word in the Quran, as well as the samawat in the world, whatever that which is above refers to, all of them are signs, all of them are ayat, all of them are indications to something beyond themselves. So it is a rahmah for the majority of people. For instance, majority of people are not scholars, they are not scientists, and they do not need to be so in order to be amazed at the skies and the bodies, the celestial bodies, the planets, the stars above them in space, including the sun and the moon that obviously follow a cosmic order. Anyone with no intention to deny would understand that such order indicates an orderer, and a rububiyyah, a universal, all-comprehensive, all-encompassing rububiyyah. There is another hikmah also, is that to those who have knowledge of the working of the celestial bodies, such Quranic ayat encourage them, as we said before, to uncover the creational ayats and rejoice in what they indicate beyond themselves. And so the hikmah that looks to yufassilu ayat, he makes the ayat clear by speaking of beings in a general and concise way, not in details. The Quran presents the skies and the moon and the sun as ayat to the general public, whether learned or not, as we said, without burdening us, without burdening the people with unnecessary details that may actually obscure, that may be a veil to the guidance offered in the Quran. Because we would jump on the details and forget about the purpose of the ayah. We have that tendency to focus on information, on the things themselves, at the expense of the essential meaning, the meaning that they are conveying to us, which look ultimately to the reflection of the beautiful divine names that they indicate. And because most people tend to take these beings anyways, like the sun, the moon, the sky, for granted, most of us, we're amazed at many other things, but we tend to take these for granted, and we rarely stop and wonder at them and reflect on the way they've been made and how they're regulated to produce results that are actually vital and crucial for the continuation of life on earth. And so the Quran is teaching us how to stop and look at things, well, let's say, not for themselves, but instead to look at them on account of their maker, to look at them as signs to something much greater than anything they could be. So this way of addressing people in the Quran fits many understandings and needs, and it achieves at the same time its main purpose of guiding all people to their Rabb and helping them see the Rahmah and many other beautiful divine attributes through the ayat. And I could stop here and say, okay, you look at the sky, it looks beautiful. Look at all the stars; they look as though suspended in the sky. Yeah. And we can move to the next ayah. However, since this is the age of science and the so-called scientific knowledge, which is information actually, let's consider this ayah a little bit more from that perspective, the perspective that what could it refer to? How would a person, the average person now, understand from the skies being raised without support? So how are the ayat made clear for people like us who've been exposed to scientific information? So if we say that the samawat, what is above, refers to space, for instance, and we look into outer space. So what is outer space? We usually think of the void that exists between the celestial bodies, including the earth. This void, however, is not completely empty. I mean, can't be empty anyways, because what is emptiness? Emptiness means there is nothing. Nothing is nothing. It wouldn't be there, but it is there. So I don't want to go into philosophy. However, when, as far as we know now, Allahu A'lam, but it doesn't matter because it's only a sign. So even if the information changes, what it points to is important, not what it is. So it's not completely empty. It looks like empty to us because it contains a very low density of particles. Very low, of course, I'm comparing it in my mind with the air, for instance. So it's mostly a plasma of hydrogen. Hydrogen, maybe you say in English. I'm sorry, because I studied all my science mostly still pronouncing it in the French way. Maybe hydrogen, I haven't checked the pronunciation. And helium, and also electromagnetic radiation, magnetic field, neutrinos, dust, cosmic rays, and things like that. And so this plasma has a very, very, very low density. And this is very important because compared with the air, for instance, it contains in 1 cubic meters, there are only few hydrogen atoms in outer space. On Earth, in the air, there are 10 to the 25th power molecules per cubic meters. So 10 with 25 zeros after it. So 1 with 25 zeros. If we have 1 with 6 zeros, that's a million. With 9 zeros, that's a billion. This is 1 with 25 zeros of molecules in the air. How can you see? And air seems not very dense compared to Earth, for instance. And in outer space, it's only a few. So can you see how much emptier it is? And this has lots of hikmah and lots of adama, lots of glory, lots of wisdom in it. Because the density of matter in outer space is so low, then, for instance, electromagnetic radiation can travel very great distances without being scattered. You know, when something is, if you throw a stone, let's say, if it meets another stone, it may collide, it may break and scatter into pieces. That's what happens to light. So a photon can travel in this intergalactic space for about 10 to the 23rd power kilometer, 10 billion light years, without colliding with anything else. Can you imagine? And that's why we receive light from the sun. Look at the rahmah as well with the hikmah. Because it's not only coming fast, because there is nothing on the way, no traffic, and no accident, everything comes to us very fast. A photon here is a particle of electromagnetic radiation, and what we call light, it's also known as maybe a particle of light. But light, the visible light that we talk about, is only a small range of the frequencies of this electromagnetic radiations. So you can realize how limited we are, you know. You realize that there is so much out there that we can't even perceive directly. And so you understand that people who think, no, I only believe in what I see directly, science, none of it is what you perceive directly. It's only always interpretation of what you because most of it is not even perceived directly. It's perceived through experiments and etc. So again, So one is the light goes very fast and without colliding, without being scattered on the way, so there is no israf. And again, because of this very low, actually extremely low density in particles of the this plasmic whatever it is, the so-called vacuum in outer space, there is no friction. And so the stars and the planets and the moons and everything, they can move freely. It's not only the light, but the bodies of matter itself, they also move freely along their orbits with a very minimum, let's say, there is no fuel in that sense, but just to use it as a metaphor, very little maintenance. Friction here is, how do I explain this? I guess you all understood what I'm talking about. If you take a ball and you roll it on the floor, so there is no gravity involved, after a while it's going to stop. And the rougher the floor is, the faster it's going to stop. That's called friction in physics. And the higher the friction, the rougher the floor is, the slower the ball will move and the faster it will stop. And then you will have to push it again. So if there is no friction, it means this ball is going to, you just push it and it's going to roll for a long, long, long time. Oh, you imagine how you can see the awesomeness of how things work and the wisdom in how all this have been set up and created. Remember here, we're not talking about balls. We're talking about the earth, the stars. These are huge, huge, humongous bodies. And remember that the sun is a small star. It's not a big star. And the galaxies, which are made of thousands and millions of stars, all of them are in constant motion. Subhanallah. So maybe from here, from on Earth, when we look at the sun, it may not look that big or that huge, but that's because we are looking at it while we are on Earth, so we don't have a proportion of what's, we can't compare it with the Earth, for instance. If it were possible, hypothetically, if we could stand at a place that is at the same distance from both the Earth and the Sun, and we looked at both of them, then we would see the real size difference. Because the Sun right now is about 150 million kilometers away from us. So that's why it looks so small. I mean, just take any object, when we get far away from it, it starts looking real small. So if you can see the sun this big, when you remember that it's 150 million kilometers away, then you say, Subhanallah, it's huge. The diameter of the sun is over 1 million kilometers. And the diameter of the Earth is about 13,000 kilometers. So the sun's diameter is 109 times longer than the Earth. What does it mean? It means that volume-wise, it would take 1.3 million Earths to match the volume of one sun, of the sun. Can you imagine? 1.3 million. These are huge. You see the azama, the glory, and you realize how small we are, and then just stop where you are. Like, don't speak as if you know everything, you understand everything. And these are huge things, of course, in our perception, but that's what, when people who deny lots of people deny because of this ghadama, because of this glory. It's just too much. How could it be? So these huge bodies, actually the sun is huge in volume compared to the earth, and as far as density is concerned, as dense, like it's very heavy. You can have a piece of cotton and a piece of iron. The volume may be the same, but the weight is definitely not the same. Obviously, you can, because one is very dense and one is not. The cotton is not as dense as the iron, and so the sun is so dense. I mean, it's also the biggest body, the biggest object in the solar system. But can you imagine? It contains 99.86% of the mass of the solar system. And most of the remaining is not the Earth. It's Jupiter, because it's the largest planet in the solar system. Subhanallah. Start getting a perspective of what is these skies, this above. And this is only the solar system, and the solar system is just a small piece of our galaxy, the Milky Way. So this area is just saying one word and pointing to go and reflect and learn and make sajda, prostrate before the glory of the maker of this. Subhanallah. And probably you have heard that the sun is a small star. So this huge sun is not a big star. There are many, many stars which are much larger than the sun, like hundreds of times larger. And there is even, it is believed that the biggest, the largest star is thought to be about 2,000 times larger than the sun. Subhanallah. And all these bodies, like the stars, the planet, and the moons, they all have atmospheres, like Earth. Just like we have atmospheric layers around the Earth, they all have atmospheric layers as well. And how do these stellar atmospheres, stellar means relating to stars, remain around the star and do not fly away in space? Because remember, in space, once something is gone, it's gone. Unless it hits something, it's going to travel for a long time before it can hit anything, because there's almost no traffic. It's very, there's no density. There are lots of void in outer space. What keeps these atmospheres around the stars and planets and around the Earth as well? It's this, the so-called gravitational attraction. So this gravity, this gravitational attraction, is also an area. It is an area to this universal power, to this universal knowledge, to this tadbir. Tadbir, yudabbiru al-amr. Yudabbiru, God yudabbiru. He regulates, he governs everything that exists. So he is the mudabbir, he is the regulator, the governor of everything. And the more we get deeper into creation, how the workings of creation, and the more we realize that everything is indeed administered, regulated through the same universal laws of power, the laws of power, the laws of knowledge, that indicate a single source of rububiyyah, whether it's here on Earth or the biggest stars. The atmospheric layers are kept around by the same phenomena, which is known as gravity. We could also read samawat as referring to the atmospheric layers here on Earth. And we would also realize that the atmosphere of the Earth, which is a layer of gases, mostly air, especially at the first layer is air and then it's different gases surrounding our planet, is also retained by gravitation. And so this is an ayah to rahmah as well. It's not only an ayah to power and knowledge, to rahmah, because life on Earth is protected through the atmosphere. Through the atmosphere, there are ultraviolet solar radiation coming in, and what is those layers operate like a filter, so they absorb all the harmful radiation. Harmful for what? For living beings. At the same time, they warm the surface of the Earth through heat retention, like the greenhouse effect. And not only that, but they regulate the temperature variation. So it's not extremely hot and then extremely cold, especially like, for instance, day and night. At night when there is no radiation coming, it retains it there and keeps the temperature more or less constant. So, and all this are done with the purpose of protecting life on Earth. And in order for these results to take place, the whole system, the sun, the radiation, the gases of the atmospheres, everything, the laws of physics, the so-called laws of chemistry, everything involved have to cooperate and work in harmony with each other. And each has to know everything else and be able to work with everything else and be able to subjugate everything else to itself for these results to take place. But when you look at each one of them, however huge it is, the sun, at the end, it is made of matter. It's a collection of the same thing. It's like whether you have a cup of water or an ocean of water, water is still water. And so all these things, they're all lifeless, they're all unconscious elements. And in order to work in such harmony, in such perfect balance, knowingly, as though they see and know everything, they would have to be aware, to have the knowledge, to have the power, to have the wisdom, to be able to plan for the future, and to have a memory of the past, and to be aware of the final purpose, which is the protection of life. And they have to be able to act accordingly. And this is clearly doesn't make sense. It's impossible, because each one will have to know everything in order to fit into the whole. Because everything, every single thing is connected with the whole rest. Not only here and now, they are connected to the past and the future, because you see that the order doesn't change. Or this is an ayah. This actually is telling us that they actually are all working at the will, at the command of one who knows everything, one who administers everything, one who yudabbirul amr. He is the one who governs all that exists and controls all that exists and regulates everything. And he has power over every single thing, the power of beings. The one who gives life, because they don't have life, but at the end, life is being produced and maintained and nourished. So the one who is doing it is a Rabb, who is the giver of life and the protector of. He protects it with wisdom, with compassion. And that's why it says in this ayah, يُدَبِّرُ الْأَمْرَ يُفَصِّلُ الْآيَاتِ. So see how he makes the ayat clear? He says he regulates and governs everything that exists, and thus this way he makes the ayats clear. So how does he make the ayat clear? By wisely planning, ordering, regulating all that exists. يُدَبِّرُ الْأَمْرَ. That's how he makes the ayats clear. Because everything is created in such a way, it's regulated in such an order that they all point to one single thing. They all related with each other in such a way that if you pick up one thing, everything else comes with it. You cannot separate them. They are inseparable. This expression, يُدَبِّرُ الْأَمْرَ, appears twice in Surah Yunus. So if you can, inshallah, look at ayah, the third ayah of Surah 10, Surah Yunus. Surah Yunus alayhi salam, 10, ayah 3. It says, إِنَّ رَبَّكُمُ اللَّهُ الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ في 6 أيام ثم استوى على العرش يدبر الأمر ما من شفيع إلا من بعد إذنه ذلكم الله ربكم فاعبدوه أفلا تذكرون. So verily your Rabb is God. Who is this God? The God who has created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, in 6 aeons, and is established on the throne. We will come to this istawa ala al-arsh because it appears also in the second ayah of Surah Ar-Ra'd that we are reflecting on today. Governing all that exists, there is none that could intercede with him except with his permission. Thus is God your Rabb. Again, it is saying, who is our Rabb? Who is God? So worship, therefore, worship only him. Will you not then remember? Will you not bethink yourself? أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. And the next ayah that again in Surah Yunus alayhi salam, Surah 10, ayah 31, 10:31. It says, قُلْ مَنْ يَرْزُقُكُم مِّنَ السَّمَاءِ وَالْأَرْضِ أَمَّنْ يَمْلِكُ السَّمْعَ وَالْأَبْصَارَ وَمَنْ يُخْرِجُ الْحَيَّ مِنَ الْمَيِّتِ وَيُخْرِجُ الْمَيِّتَ مِنَ الْحَيِّ وَمَنْ يُدَبِّرُ الْأَمْرَ فَسَيَقُولُونَ اللَّهُ فَقُلْ أَفَلَا تَتَّقُونَ. Say, who provides for you from the sky and from the earth? And who owns hearing and sight? And who brings forth the living from the dead and brings forth the dead from the living? And who regulates all that exists? وَمَنْ يُدَبِّرُ الْأَمْرِ. They will say, God. Then say, will you not then remain conscious of him? So you see here in both ayat, it's mentioning a few obvious examples. The heavens, the earth, the provision from both the heavens and from earth, actually together. The water comes from heaven, the food from the earth, for instance. The light, the air comes from heaven, other things come from the earth. And the hearing, the sight, and giving us specific examples. And then it generalizes and says, actually, what you see and what you don't see, and God knows that we see and we know very little, your Rabb, يُدَبِّرُ الْأَمْرِ, he regulates everything, all that exists. So it's giving us some examples and then say, like, you don't know everything, but just now surrender, trust that he is regulating everything. This is very important in our daily life. To trust, to surrender. Can you imagine if we could live with this consciousness? How serene and peaceful we would be? So, and the answer is, it says, is God, because we know that things themselves can't do anything. When we have a little of awareness, when little, stay and ask ourselves, it says, when you ask them, so these people are not conscious of Him, who regulates everything, they will say God. It says, then, won't you then remain conscious of Him? Because when you think about it, when you stop and reflect, how can things themselves create anything when they themselves are created? It says in Surah An-Nahl, which is Surah 16, Ayah 20, وَالَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ لَا يَخْلُقُونَ شَيْئًا وَهُمْ يُخْلَقُونَ. Those things, those beings that they invoke instead of God cannot create anything because they themselves are being created. How can they create anything? And in Surah Al-A'raf, which is Surah number 7, from Ayah 191 to 193. I love these 3 ayahs, so I'm going to read all of them. So it says, أَيُشْرِكُونَ مَا لَا يَخْلُقُ شَيْئًا وَهُمْ يُخْلَقُونَ وَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ لَهُمْ نَصْرًا وَلَا أَنفُسَهُمْ يَنْصِرُونَ وَإِنْ تَدْعُوهُمْ إِلَى الْهُدَى لَا يَتَّبِعُكُمْ سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْكُمْ دَعَوْتُمُوهُمْ أَمْ أَنْتُمْ صَامِتُونَ. Will they then ascribe partners, make shirk of beings that cannot create anything because they themselves are being created, and they are neither able to give them help, to help them, nor can they help themselves? These things, think about it. If you say water is the source of life, look at water. It doesn't even have life itself. And if you pray to them for guidance, if you ask them for guidance, they do not respond to you. As far as you are concerned, it is all one whether you invoke them or keep silent. They can't hear you. Subhanallah. And the next ayah it says, verily all those whom you invoke besides God are only created beings like yourselves. Invoke them then and let them answer your prayer if what you claim is true. And sometimes these beings are not water or a being or a thing, but a phenomenon like gravity. Gravity does not do anything. It doesn't pull things to itself. It is the name to this amazing creation. It is an ayah to this tadbir, to this all-encompassing rububiyyah, to this regulation, to this order. So the law of gravity is when I throw something, it falls. It falls, of course, according to a certain order. We're not concerned about that for the moment. And in physics, in classical physics, what we learn at school, it is the force that attracts a body towards the center of the earth. However, has any one of us ever seen a force pulling anything? So actually, since science is only about what we see, we do not see any force pulling anything. We do not observe any such force, but only bodies falling towards the earth according to a certain coefficient, a certain order. The rest, the force, is actually an interpretation. It is not observation. However, whatever...
Yamina, how about the magnet? Like in the magnet example, we can observe sometimes.
Yeah, we observe the same thing. It's like when if you take a pencil or something in your hand and just leave it, it will drop. And it's the same with the magnet. So we don't see something pulling, we just see things moving in a certain way, okay?
But when you try to push two magnets towards each other, you feel something there. Like, I don't know if you ever tried, like when you divide a magnet into two.
Yes, that's the observation. Now in classical physics, that's called a force, right? However, it could be interpreted in different way. So we all see the same thing. We see things coming towards each other. But what we see is the two magnets moving towards each other, right? We don't see two magnets and a force.
But I mean, you can feel it, like, especially if they are the same polarity. I think it's called polarity. If it's the same, like positive.
I'll tell you. In general relativity, it's called. In classical physics, they talk about forces. In general relativity theory, gravity is not a force. It is interpreted as a curvature of space-time. Space-time is curved in certain ways that things are moving in a certain way. I can't explain it. It's a property of space-time. It's not a force. You see, which one is right? It doesn't matter. They're all interpretations. What we see, what the layman sees from outside, that's what we see only. Anything else is interpretation. Have you ever heard of gravity as curvature of space-time? Isra?
No, I haven't. I haven't heard that. I'm not like very knowledgeable in physics, so maybe. I didn't hear.
But what you said is true. We see the two magnets moving, but we don't see a third element called force doing something. I'm not saying whether it's there or not. That's not the point. I'm saying science has part of it is an interpretation in order to put things together. And so it is not something that we see, the force part of it. So it's not only like, even when you don't believe in an ayat, you are forced to interpret what it means. Because things in themselves, they have a meaning, they are pointing to something else, to another meaning. Even in themselves, it's not like, this is it. I know. There is a force here. This is what gravity... Because gravity, actually gravity is only the way... how would we call it? It's a law. So what is a law? It's a name describing a particular process, right? It's a regularity. Whenever we throw an object, it falls in a certain way. This regularity, we call it the law of gravitation. So it's a name. What gravity is it a curvature of space-time? Is it a force pulling things? That's something else. Whatever we believe, whatever it is, the important thing is how is this being realized and what it is pointing to. Who or what is pulling things in an orderly manner. Of course, in classical physics, it is matter. There's a matter pulls matter. Just a second. How can matter, like, does matter calculate how much force to exert? Because you have to exert a force according to a formula. There is a mathematical description of this pulling. It doesn't happen haphazardly, because if you pull too much, for instance, we walk on Earth, we live on Earth, if matter on Earth was pulling too much, then we would be stuck on Earth. We couldn't move. If it was pulling us too little, it would be like on the moon. We couldn't stand. We would be flying around. Life would be quite difficult. The air, if it was not at the right proportion, the pulling, the air would fly away in space, and there would be no atmospheric layer, and that's it. There will be no life on Earth. So can matter really calculate and measure and act accordingly? Oh, now this is too big now. I shouldn't be pulling too much, otherwise this thing will fly away or won't be able to move or something. This is clearly nonsense. There is something going on, and this going on is what's going on is an area that everything is orderly. There is order, so it's there is a source of knowledge, a source of power, a source of administration, someone who is administrating all this. Yudabbiru al-amr, it says in the Quran. With these two words, it encompassed, it summarized all these things. So one thing is clear, is that all these motions are taking place in an extremely well-ordered, well-measured manner. As I said, if it's a little bit too little or too much, the whole balance is going to be spoiled. There will be no life on Earth as far as we are concerned. So nothing is happening haphazardly. And this meticulous, this very sensitive balance, this awesome tadbir and this order, they all indicate that source of wisdom, of universal knowledge, order. They indicate a mudabbir who regulates and everything perfectly. Alhamdulillah. So back to the ayah. So now we went through it says, God is He who has raised up the heavens without any support that we can see, and then He is established on the throne, and He has made the sun and the moon subservient to His laws. I'm putting the sun and the moon. You can go through the sun and the moon, the orbits and all that, and it will be the same as the heaven raised without any support. If you, the more you learn, the more we are amazed at the rububiyyah involved in everything. It's not the other way around. It's not like if we learn more how things are being administered, then there will be no need for God. Because the way the Quran is teaching us about God is not like I'm a Muslim, therefore I believe in God, therefore He must have created everything. Although each statement here is correct, the logic is not the logic of the Quran. In the Quran it is, look at the way everything is regulated, look at the heavens, how they've been raised without support, and then you will understand that they are clear ayat, and you will understand that He is the one who regulates everything. And so now mastawa ala al-arsh, He established Himself on the throne. This expression is also repeated many times in the Quran. And it is understood as anyone Arabic speaker who can translate ulu wa istiqrar, where istawa, it says, is istawla wa dhahara. Istawla, it means He took over everything. Like there is, when you look, you can see nothing but Him, وَظَهَرَ became manifest. وَالْعُلُو is something like he is above everything. وَالْإِسْتِقْرَار and grounded in everything. And also there is the term here عرش استوى على العرش. So he established himself on the throne. Throne here, Arsh, also means actually rather than just throne, the seat of power, the seat of power, of control, of authority. And it's used in the Quran usually to denote God's absolute sway over all, over everything, all the creation, all that exists. And it is the place where the istiwa manifests itself, this establishing. And usually it's understood as the arsh, the throne, the place of his rububiyyah, the arsh of his rahmah, the arsh of his glory, his azamah. And actually everything is created in the way it says at the beginning, when it says he raised the heavens without support that you can see, then he established himself this way. Thumma here is not about time. This way he established himself on the throne. He created them in such a way that when I look at them, I will see the arsh of rububiyyah. I will see his rububiyyah everywhere. And it means that everything is created in such a way that it is clear that everything points to him only, that nothing else, no other thing, no other being, no other law like gravity or anything can claim even a single atom, because the atom is an inseparable part of the whole, and it can only exist with the whole. It can't exist on its own, and so it is itself an ayah. It indicates that the maker of one atom is the maker of all. That's istawa ala al-arsh, and that means that the Rabb established himself so that it is clear that his mulk, his property, the creation, is his and no one else's. That he is, it says in many other ayat in the Quran, he is Rabbul Arsh. He is the Rabb of the Arsh. He is the Rabb of his throne. And it says Rabbul Arsh al-Azim, Rabbul Arsh al-Kareem. It's a noble Arsh. It's an awesome Arsh. Subhanallah. And so no one else and nothing else can meddle with this arsh. It says in ayah 42 of Surah 17:42, قُلْ لَوْ كَانَ مَعَهُ آلِهَةٌ كَمَا يَقُولُونَ إِذًا لَابْتَغُوا إِلَى ذِي الْعَرْشِ سَبِيلًا. Say, if there were other gods, other deities with him, as they claim, surely they would have found a way against his arsh. They would have found a way. It means surely it would have been clear in the creation. When I looked at the creation, I would have seen that they were partners with God. It would have been clear that the arsh is not only his, because there are other things also on the arsh. They would have found a way to that arsh. What does it mean? The fact is that the throne, that seat of power, belongs to him alone. And when you look, they are all interconnected. There is one order, one universal order. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to even talk about outer space. But we take for granted that the same law that is valid here is valid there because of that universality. And this is an indication that they are all the work of one only, one source of power, one source of governance. The stars are governed by the same laws as the earth. And if you think of water, subhanallah, It enters every living being, humans, animals, insects, plants, and it acts in all of them, as though it knows all of their anatomies, all of their physical, biological, chemical constitutions, without any hesitation, without mistake whatsoever. One day I drink water, and oh, water didn't work like water. It messed up things up. Never happens, because so it also not only in living beings, but it also penetrates inanimate matter, and it always, mashallah, barakallah, acts in orderly manner, in a perfect way. So either it is following the will, the command, the law of the Rabbul Alameen, the Rabb of the Arsh, who knows everything and governs everything, or if we don't accept this, then we would have to claim that this lifeless, I have some water in my hand as I'm saying this, lifeless and unconscious water has a will of its own, and that it knows itself everything, all these laws, all the constitutions of all animate and inanimate beings, and it has, not only it knows, but it has the power to act and subjugate all the other elements to its will and act accordingly, which is absurd, because we all know that when we look at water itself, it itself attests to all of us who are willing to reflect that is an area, that it is acting bi-idhnillah at the will of its Rabb, its maker. And that's why in the Quran you all have heard of that ayah which says we made out of water every living thing. وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. And the whole ayah is ayah 21, Surat al-Anbiya 21, ayah 30, says أولم يرى الذين كفروا أن السماوات والأرض كانتا رتقا ففتقناهما وجعلنا من الماء كل شيء حي أفلا يؤمنون. Are then those who are bent on denying the truth not aware that the heavens and the earth were once one single entity? Then we parted them apart, like they became two entities, and that we made out of water every living thing. Will they not believe? And this is, it says we made out of water everything, we gave life to everything through water, by means of water. Min al-ma'i. And that's why I thought of water, because we are taught in Surah Hud alayhi salam, it's Surah 11, ayah 7, 11:7. It says, كَانَ عَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ. And usually people who are a little bit, if you have studied a little bit of Quran, when you think of Arsh, you think of al-ma, water, as Arsh. It is not the only Arsh, but it is an example of Arshullah. So it says in, I will take the, start from the ayah before so it makes more sense. I start from 11:6 and then I'll come to 11:7. It says, there is no living creature on earth which does not depend on God for its sustenance, for its rizq. And He knows where it lives and its final destination. It is all in a clear book. كُلٌّ فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. And He it is who has created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. And His throne was upon water. So His throne is on water. His arsh is on water. So as to test which of you does best. سبحان الله لعل ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا كان عرشه على الماء ليبلوكم أيكم أحسن عملا. Yet if you say to them you will be resurrected after death, the disbelievers are sure to answer, this is clearly nothing but magic. But can you imagine when you say this is magic? Look at water, how it functions everywhere. After the winter, how the rain comes and everything grows, becomes green. In the deserts, I've never seen it. I've never been myself, but I heard people, and I've seen it in documentaries. It's actually the desert. If it rains just a little bit, you will see some greenery growing very fast. Isn't that magic? Like, what are they saying? This is clearly not but magic. It's clearly the word of someone who is unaware, who is not reflecting. How have you grown from a baby into a toddler, into an adult? Well, just reflect on what is the meaning of this magic, if you call it magic. If it is magic, then everything is magic. If that is magic, being resurrected after death, then everything is magic then. And the word magic has to be redefined. Here they mean, they say, إن هذا إلا سحر مبين, like it is not real. That's what they mean. It's like a delusion, or, sorry, not a delusion, illusion. But that's the reality of everything when we stop and think about it and reflect about it. When we reflect on what the ayat are indicating. They're indicating a reality that is more wonderful than any magic we can imagine. And water is really a very powerful ayah because it's so weak, so lifeless, so unconscious, and yet it is employed in the bringing into being of creatures full of life. It has no life, but Allah says, I use it to give life. And that's how it becomes. It becomes arsh, because in that relationship of the lifeless water with life coming after water enters, it points to, it's like that relationship is saying, declaring, La ilaha illallah, La muhiyya illallah, there is no giver of life but He, no one with knowledge but He. And this is how water makes its tasbihat and glorifies its Rabb through the way it is being in the world, the way it is created, the way it interacts with especially living beings, the way life comes through it. It is just like a door. Just because food comes from the kitchen, you can't say that the kitchen is producing food. That's what water is. It is like a mirror reflecting light. The mirror can't be the source of light. And that's what those tasbih is. And I want to stop at the tasbih. There is in Surah Al-Isra, Surah 17, Ayah 44, it says, the seven heavens make tasbih, تسبح له السماوات السبع والأرض, and the earth, and all that they contain. And here, sorry, all they contain is وَمَنْ فِيهِنَّ, and man is not what, but who. It refers to consciousness. And there's not a single thing but make his tasbih with praise, with hamd. But you fail to grasp their tasbih. Verily, إِنَّهُ كَانَ حَلِيمًا غَفُورًا. He is forbearing, much forgiven. Alhamdulillah that he is much forgiven. Otherwise, he is much forgiving, and he is Halim, he is forbearing, because he creates again and again things again and again, speaks to us again and again. So inshallah we will rethink and remember. And in ayah 13 of the surah of Surah Al-Ra'd, we told actually that thunder makes tasbih. يُسَبِّحُ الرَّعْدُ بِحَمْدِهِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةُ مِنْ خِيفَتِهِ. The thunder makes tasbih, it says in ayah 13. And many surahs, Surah Al-Hadid, 57, Surah Al-Jum'ah, Surah Al-Ghabun, Surah Al-Hashr, they all start by mentioning that everything makes tasbih. And then, you know, the first, usually the first ayah of a surah gives you the theme, what it's about. And afterwards it's going to actually proceed to show, to demonstrate how they make tasbih. And that is clearly seen in Surah Al-Hashr. Surah Al-Hashr is Surah 59, and it has 24 or 20, yes, 24 ayah. And so in Surah Al-Hashr, the first ayah says, سبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. All that is in the heavens and all that is on earth makes tasbih to God, for He is almighty, truly wise. And then ayahs, and at the end, last 3 ayahs of Surah Al-Hashr, they explain the relationship of the tasbihat with the divine attributes of God, the Isma al-Husna. And maybe you have heard that you